And welcome to Catholics Coast to Coast. I'm Ace McKay, where we get to really dial down and chill for the weekend, hanging out in Podcast Central for all the latest conversations that help to deepen our walk with God. And as we, of course, start a new month, we want you to know about great shows that can help be your companion through the week, and you can catch up easily at EWTN.com/podcast. So as we dive in this week, we want to check in with the Catholic gentleman as we find out that as men today, we often have lost or quietly confuse what's happening in our lives, and somehow they should be a striving for more, yet feel strangely unmoved to pursue it. So how do we get past that as men and get to a point where literally our obligations are really about vision, intention, and means? So we'll find out this week really what is the reality of the fact of men who are not evil or careless, but intentionally stalled and are unsure as to what to do working ahead. So let's find out from the Catholic gentleman as we dive in with this week's Catholics Coast to Coast.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here on another episode of The Catholic Gentleman. We are so blessed that you have decided to join us here in January. You are in our prayers. Please keep us in yours. We are your hosts. I'm John Heinen. We've got my close friend, Executive Director of Fathers of St. Joseph, Devin Shad. Devin, how are you? How is your family doing? I bet it's a lot colder up there than it is here, but I'm love to hear how they're doing.
Short answer is we are trying. No, I mean, like seriously, I mean, it's, I don't know, what did Our Lady of Fatima say to Saint Bernadette? She said, I cannot promise you happiness in this life, but I can promise you happiness in the next. And not that we don't have happiness. We have joy in our home, but we have serious situations with our special needs daughter and with my wife, with her. She's got a chronic illness. So yeah, I mean, we're just navigating all that, but even amidst that, we have tremendous joy, and that is totally, that seems backwards to the world, but that's the grace of God. That's how God works, It's in our sufferings that he brings about greatest joy. So
that's
yeah,
the truth.
we're good.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you're in my daily prayers, and so I'd encourage all the listeners here to offer up a prayer for Devin and his family. And I will say, if you are interested in learning more about suffering, you can listen to our episode that we released recently. So anyways, what a joy. Today, we're going to talk about the number one reason that men cannot get ahead. That's spiritually, that's personally, in their drive in business, or obviously growth and virtue, even relationally. This is something that affects all of us. And I want to be clear here that it's every man needs to get this formula that we're talking about correct. And it's something that we've intuited and that we come up with on previous episodes. And I'm looking forward to going into it. But it has the potential to make every man better if rightly ordered. That's high achievers and those with a lot of ambition, as well as those who are just lost and don't know how to move forward. And so I'm really looking forward to that. So if you like what we're doing, if you like this show, we'd love it if you hit that like and subscribe button. It's the greatest way of helping us grow. Thank you so very much for all of our Spotify listeners for pushing us past 1,000. I did a call out a couple episodes ago that we were just 10 away from 1,000, and we're now well over 1,100. So I really appreciate everybody who went in there and hit that 5 stars. It means a lot, and it does help grow and expand the reach here inside of Catholic Gentlemen. So thank you. All right. So this conversation and topic that we're going to talk about today was sparked by a realization that I had in a podcast with Devin last year, where I said something along the lines of, what does it profit a man to gain the world but to lose his soul? And then I realized that the majority of men in these new studies are not even profiting the world, right? That's one deviation from the will of God. That's one distortion and one thing that men often pursue. But we're seeing an increasing number, almost half of men in recent studies, that just actually have no misguided ambition. They are just lost. They are coping with life, and they are moving from one reaction to the next reaction and just struggling to live. And so I started realizing, how do we speak to men like that? Like, how do we enter into that depth of lost confusion? And so I've been working through that a lot, and I'll say that I Also, on our conversations with Devin and I, we've talked about marriage on one, and even on our most recent episode on suffering, we basically talked about having the end in mind. Like, if you don't have the end in mind, you're not going to get through your marriage successfully. It doesn't matter all the life hacks, all the DIYs, all the do this, do that, do this, do that, right? If you don't have your end in mind and God's grace to support you, it's going to fail. And we see actually the same thing when it comes to appreciating suffering and understanding suffering in our lives, is that we have to have that end in mind. And so I've just been digging through this a lot, and we've got this new framework that I've come across that I want to bring up and talk about it. But Devin, before we do that, I'd love for you to talk about passivity in men, this lost men. And is this something that you have been recognizing outside of the statistics and studies, but in your own personal conversations with men?
Maybe not so much with men my age, but with men who are younger, definitely. And I wouldn't even say that run in my circles. There are a lot of younger men in my circles who are very driven and very successful. I mean, I'm talking like early 20s to early 30s. These guys are driven. So there is some of that. But I think that there is a huge kind of it's not even a movement. It's just kind of like this static, it's like this group of young men that has no drive, has very little motivation other than what are they going to watch, who they're going to hang out with, what kind of drugs are they going to do, where are they partying, where they're going to pick up the next gal. And I really think though that, so what is the element that's really new to all this? Because this is kind of a new phenomenon. You go back to the 1800s. I mean, the majority of men, they're fighting to, have a homestead. They're fighting for survival, and they're doing it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So what is it? I might be too simplistic, but I just really think it's social media, Instagram and TikTok and pornography and all that digital space and what's feeding them. They don't have to go anywhere or do anything to get a dopamine hit or spike, and therefore they don't work or have to work for anything that's going to give them pleasure. Whereas back in the day, if you wanted a wife, you worked for that. If you wanted a job, you worked for that. If you wanted money, you worked for that. And now everything's online, and I think that they think that the world is there and nothing else. That's reality to them. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think so. To discuss what you're mentioning, it's almost as if culture today is not preparing men to actually be men that has to work and achieve. That our culture is becoming, and our society and that which resources that we have at our disposal are conditioning men more and more to basically be able to live a lazy life, a slothful life, and to pursue pleasures at a rate that has never once been seen before. It makes me think of the fact that even 100 years ago, but let's say 150 years ago, to receive a reward of your crops or of travel or of any of these things took an intense amount of work and effort and focus and commitment. Today, though, we have everything at our fingertips. We also have this false sense of security, and you add with that this wealth that we have in just huge amounts compared to 150 years ago, meaning that young men don't have to work, right? Their parents take care of them. They have everything provided for them. The parents have inherited a faulty, notion of parenthood and have given their son everything they want. And then, so just so people know who are listening, a lot of this comes from that new study that came out, this longitudinal study that came out called Lost Boys last year, in March of last year, in the United Kingdom, where 42% of young men, can't remember exactly the ages, it was like 18 to 24 or something like that, were diagnosed clinically depressed or clinically anxious, huge amounts living with their family still, incredible spike in anxiety when they hit 22. And then for the first time in the history of mankind, women of the same age demographic are out earning men. And so that's where a lot of this is coming from. And so I do agree with you, Devin. I think that our society conditions us for instant gratification, and we have a lot of entitled culture that these young men aren't required to work and required to learn the benefit of putting forth effort. And I don't want to do broad statements, but these are what my thoughts are. I'm curious where you're at.
Yeah. So I think it's based on reward. Whatever
Okay.
you're looking for your end goal, your reward, your purpose, if it's easy to obtain, which generally speaking, like you're saying, most of what we want as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 25-year-old is pretty easy to obtain. So, as far as, yeah. And I think, though, trajectory-wise, kick the can down the road another 50 years, there's not going to be that wealth anymore. You won't be able to live in your parents' basement anymore, because that wealth won't be there, because that wealth was made in the 80s and the 90s, and we're still living off of that, so those guys that are living in the basements now, or those guys who get the part-time jobs now, and they're just kind of saving their money. Like, that's a phenomenon, right? You work
Yeah.
part-time for 3 months, save your money, and then you party for 3 months. You quit work, or 2 months, or whatever. That is
Yeah.
real. That's very real. But they have the luxury of that because they have an infrastructure that allows them to do that. They can depend on other people's wealth. But that's not going to be there, because the generations that come after them aren't going to be able to depend on them. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
And
I
so
do.
that's where we're headed, unless something changes.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think that it's the trajectory of where things are going, and what can we here as men do, but obviously live contrary to this direction. Yeah, please.
The other thing that is, and this is the carrot, or the golden carrot, is that YouTube holds out to you that if you get enough subs and you get enough views, you can make millions, just by being a social media guy, by being an influencer. And so you have all these younger men and women who are constantly cranking out content, thinking that they're going to be wealthy, thinking that that's what's going to work for them. And so obviously it's oversaturated. Some people do rise to the top, but we're spending all our time doing that. And meanwhile, we're not bettering ourselves in what really matters. We're rendering ourselves almost incapable to actually working and applying ourselves at a real job, or real life, or real relationships.
Yeah, that makes me so grateful for my parents who required me to do all of those things, whether I wanted to or not. And so I was having this conversation with a good friend of mine, somebody I respect, Nick Madden, recently. He's the CEO of Cent Ventures. And I was asking him, how do you motivate men to work out? And he said, well, yeah, because their go-to is going to be, I'm never going to look like that guy, right? Comparison. Mm-hmm. I'll never get skinny, just that negative thought, or a justification of sorts. I haven't worked out for 20 years, so, things have been going fine. And never mind the fact, that our body is a temple that, is surrendered to the Lord. Like, these sort of things in Scripture, the fact that our body is a gift that has been given to us, and frankly, it needs to be given back in the use of God, our Heavenly Father, for the sake of building the kingdom and for living the life that God wants us to live as strong men that can take care of our families and can take care of ourselves. But how do you motivate men that don't have that? And so I was asking, or have that vision. And so I was asking Nick about this, and Nick just kind of asked me, well, what would you do? And I said, well, immediately I'd be like, well, I need to get healthy so that I can be able to take care of my kids. And then I would immediately go into my strategy, which would be like, I'm going to work out 3 days a week during this time. I'm going to wake up early on these days to make sure that I do that. And then I'm going to try and get that going. And I said, if that strategy works, then great. If I don't gain traction on it, and ultimately that traction doesn't turn into momentum, then I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to re-strategize. And Nick said something really astute. He said, John, that works so great for somebody like you who has like just this intense drive and willpower that I do have. And he said, but for these men that we're talking about here, it's like 2 steps removed, right? This idea. And he said, so what he brought up is something that we're going to talk about in this episode here. And it was brought up by Dallas Willard. in his book, Renovation of the Heart. It's actually a beautiful book. In Renovation of the Heart, he talks about how Christ comes to redeem man, but to renovate the heart. And that in this process of renovation, right, where he's fixing that which needs to be renewed, and he is making the heart into the new man that we have been created to be, that some people get only halfway renovated and then give up. Other people need a whole foundation that needs to be repaired, and they're just not willing to do the work. And still other people never actually achieve that total renovation during this life. And that ultimately there's very few, the narrow road, that are allowing themselves to experience this total renovation of the heart. And I think it's a beautiful analogy. It's a beautiful way of thinking through God's work in our lives, that it's something that we do have to commit to, but it takes time, right? It takes time, it takes effort, it takes prayer, and of course, all of this dependent on grace. And so he came up with this framework to help men. This is back in 2002 when he wrote this. So Dallas Willard was influenced. He passed away in 2013, may he rest in peace, but he was influenced by Augustine and Aquinas and Teresa of Avila and Bernard of Clairvaux and Jacques Maritain, but he was also influenced by some Protestant, individuals as well. But I liked this framework because I see it in it something that could help even a man of drive and ambition, but also somebody who's just lacking that. And his framework, as he calls, is vision, intention, and means. So that's VIM. And I want to talk first with you, Devin, about vision and the good use of vision as well as the potential bad use of it. But this idea of becoming a better man and using this framework of vision, intention, and means can happen in the micro level. Like, I just need to be more patient, or I need to be kinder, or I need to work out, or I want to learn Arabic is one of his examples. Like, this can be used in all of those. But at the same time, his argument is that we need to be using it at the grand meta level. And so, like, the whole purpose and existence of our lives. And so to start with vision is we have to have a very clear vision as to what the purpose and means and goal of our lives is. And that vision has to come down to being renewed and transformed in Christ, to be divinized so that we can get to heaven. Now, to make sense of it on a way that's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to discuss or just to think through, is that he uses the example of speaking Arabic. And he said, a vision is that I imagine that I could be a man that speaks Arabic. And if I spoke Arabic, I would be able to go travel over to the Middle East. I would be able, and get around. I would be able to get a government job. I've always wanted a government job. I'd be able to, it would have to provide these certain outcomes for that vision to actually be tangible and desirable. And so that's just the vision. Before we move forward, we have to have a clear, spelled out vision before we move on to intention. And I know we can go into this, and actually I'm going to pause right there, Devin, and I want to hear your immediate thoughts when it comes to this notion of vision and why men lack this today.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the answer of why men lack
For
having
sure.
a vision. But so do you mind if I just use a secular example for a moment? Okay, so somebody sent me a video recently. Michael Knowles was interviewing this clavicular kid. Have you heard of this guy? 19-year-old guy, influencer. So his whole purpose of his life is to mog. And to mog is, to outshine everyone. And so he's basically, what do they call it? He's a looks maxer. Looks maxing is his thing. So at 14, he starts taking steroids. He is taking testosterone at a very early age. And his whole purpose in life is to be the peak man just by looks, because he thinks that basically that is the department or the area of life in which you can increase metrically the fastest and gain the most respect and have the halo effect, what he calls the halo effect, where you walk into a room and everything you say, people are hanging on your every word and they respect you, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as crazy and pathetic as that sounds.
Yes. Okay.
This is the point.
Yeah.
That young man has a vision.
He does.
He says, I want to be basically the greatest mogger in the world. He wants to go into a club and mog and be, and
Mogger.
yeah, and really we
Okay.
get that from man of God. So basically it's like you're a demigod. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
you're, you know, I think that's what's really at the bottom of it. Maybe they don't even understand that when they use that, but I think that what he has is he has a vision. His vision is, I want to be the best looking guy in the room. I want to be the best looking guy at the clubs, and I will do everything. He's even getting a double jaw surgery in order to make this happen at the age of 19. It's just purely cosmetic. So here's what I say about the whole vision thing. Your vision, yes, is important, but your vision determines the trajectory of your life, right? And so you have to have the right vision of yourself. And that's why I always say in my talks or retreats, where we go, your identity determines your destiny. Who you are determines who you become. And if you have a false identity, that determines that, well, that is going to lead to a false destiny or an erroneous, hellacious destiny. So our homework is to find out it's not my vision for my life, even though we want to reduce it to that. It is God's vision for my life.
That's right.
And so if we're not, I know we always talk about this, we're broken records, but if we're not spending time with the Lord, if we're not praying, if we're not entering the silence and appealing to him, asking him, Lord, what is it that you want of me? That's where all the great saints began. Ignatius, like, what do you want of me? Maximilian Kolbe, what is it that you want of me, Lord? That's the beginning of all things good. But if we don't have the humility to even ask that question, and we're just sitting there saying, no, I've got this vision that I'm going to be this very wealthy tycoon. I'm going to have my own island. I'm going to have this and that, babes at my left and at my right, whatever. Or maybe, So the point I'm trying to make is that the end in itself, that vision, it has to be the right vision, or this whole structure, it ultimately fails from the divine perspective.
That's right. I think that's just another beautiful way of talking about your identity, because ultimately this individual, I had to look him up here. Clavicular.
Yeah, clavicular.
Yeah. Gosh. But looking at this, he has such a clear vision, right?
Yes.
His identity is found in prominence and prestige and what other people think of him.
Yes.
And that sort of power and control that he can have over others and over situations. But what's interesting is that, as you just stated, is that his vision is so clear. I mean, it's so distorted, but it's also so clear that he's willing to go to these extremes of surgery and basically self-mutilation to get to the point that he can achieve this vision. And so to adjust that, I think that there's another part of vision here that often when I'm looking at this doesn't ever get to that form, because let's use it for the good. When your vision of heaven and your vision of becoming a holier man just rest strictly up here, like as like an intellectual assent, like something that you can affirm, like that sounds like a good idea and I should probably doing it, but it just stays up there and it actually it's not made practical. Men continue to be thrown around by the world, right? And I can think of myself here too, because I see another aspect of vision is that when I have a goal in mind, I will set forth with the means. I'll maybe have the intention, maybe it's not written out, maybe the why isn't that strong, but it's there, and I've got such a drive and willpower that I can often in times achieve that. But it yo-yos because it falls flat. Let's look working out as an example, right? Like sometimes I can go into really intense months and months and months of working out and feeling better, and then I'll have a baby, and we'll have a baby.
You'll have a baby?
Well, for those who aren't watching on YouTube, I'm throwing my hands up. It's like, all right, yep. I admit,
it's that post-pregnancy weight that you're really trying to drop, John.
Words matter, John. Words matter, and so we'll have a baby, my wife and I, and then it'll throw me off, and then I'll lose sight of that goal because life is too hard, and I never really had a very clear vision, is what I'm getting at here. So when I have a clear vision that I'm surrendering my body to God because it is His, when I have in that clear vision, I say it will help me be a better father.
Finding our vision, intention, and means thanks to the Catholic Gentleman. You want more on that conversation or ones you might have missed, go to EWTN.com/podcast. And as we continue with Catholics Coast to Coast, I'm Ace McKay, getting ready to hang out with Steve and Becky as we find out ways to really find a guide for marriage renewal in 2026. So we'll dive right into the Catholic conversation next on Catholics Coast to Coast.
If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
And welcome back to the Catholic Conversation. I am Steve Green, the Cradle Catholic, with my lovely wife, Becky, the convert to the faith, and we're thrilled to welcome all the way from Rome, Italy, Costanza Miriano. Costanza is a journalist, she's a blogger, she's a consultant to the Pontifical Council on the Laity, and she's the author of a wonderful new book, which is out from Sophia Press in English, entitled Blessed is the Day We Got It Wrong. Costanza, welcome to the Catholic Conversation.
Thank you for calling me. Thank you so much.
Costanza, so you wrote Marry Him and Be Submissive, and then you followed that up with a second book, Marry Her and Die for Her, which nicely encapsulates the Ephesians 5 for both men and women. Those are both available in English. So people can find those on Amazon if they want to read the first two books, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then Sophia Institute Press, and also on Amazon, they can find Blessed is the Day We Got It Wrong. And then what's your blog site? Because you're a blogger as well.
It's costanzamiriano.com. It's in Italian, but you can translate.
Excellent. People can use your blog to translate, to learn Italian. That way they'll be learning Italian and getting good formation in marriage. That's right.
But now the Pope is American, so we have to learn American.
And he's from Chicago. I'm from Wisconsin. So we have a deep rivalry between the state of Wisconsin and the state of Illinois. And so the fact that the Pope is from our rival state, everyone from my state is thinking, oh no, God has turned against us.
It's not true.
Okay.
We love him.
Yes.
We love him. I love Leo. I love Leo XIV. It's a great Pope. And I work for Rai Vaticano, so I work near St. Peter.
Nice. Okay. So have you had a chance to meet him in person?
I was very far, but I was in the same room. He doesn't even know I'm alive.
To get him a copy of the book.
Maybe, I don't know.
So Costanza, I wanted to ask you about, you talk about in the book, St. John Paul II had a big influence on you, as he has on so many people. Becky and I over the years have kind of talked about John Paul II's theology of the body as kind of like a counter-revolution to the sexual revolution. It's kind of like the church's response to the sexual revolution. Just maybe talk a little bit about where you first came across John Paul II, his teachings, and kind of some of the difference that's made for you, especially in your understanding of sex and marriage and man and woman and family and all that.
I simply grew up in a parish, and it was the Pope of my young years. And the priest of my parish was his fan, and so he invited to read and to study. And I was in love with him because in the same years when I was bombed from movies and sexual revolution. He was saying something completely different, but more fascinating to me. He was saying words like forever, because I think that deep in our heart we all want to be loved forever and to be chosen forever from one single, like a knight with his horse. And so we dream. When I was a girl, I dreamed about this love, this forever. And growing up and being a married woman, I appreciated even more what every single word he was saying about the marriage was true. Like said, when you are searching for love, he was speaking to young people. He said, when you search for love, you search for your feelings. You are searching for Jesus, because he is the only one that in your original loneliness, he used this word, solitudine originaria in Italian, the original loneliness. Just Jesus can reach you in the very deep of your heart, in the smallest room of your heart. You are alone. Even if you are married with the perfect person, if you are married with a perfect wife or husband, you are alone. And just Jesus can reach you. And that's what St. Augustine said in the Confessions. Now we have an Augustinian Pope, so it's di moda. It's popular, very popular now, St. Augustine. But so I think that John Paul II really knew the heart of women and men, because he used to prepare couples for the marriage in Poland. He knew the problems, he knew the real life. So I think everything is said. And also we have to thank Paul VI for Humane Vitae, because the sexual way, the Catholic way to live sex is much better. Saint Thomas the Aquinas used to say that, wrote once, that in before the original sin, the pleasure for Adam and Eve was much higher, because it's the sin takes away the pleasure. So the word uses to think that the sin is pleasure, but it's exactly the opposite. So living according to God's commandments is much happier and more full of pleasure, full of joy, full of fulfillment. So I think we have to spread this truth. This truth. Okay.
So you, in your book, you kind of go through some reasons that, because even there, I would say in our Catholic communities, there's probably a much higher and deeper and richer understanding, and therefore living out of what the church's teachings are on marriage and sexuality and family. And yet even in those marriages and families, because you have two imperfect human beings who are there, and that dynamic that plays out, which is unique and unrepeatable to them, that still creates frictions and misunderstandings and tensions, and all sorts of communication breakdown. And there's a lot there that even the most well-meaning and well-versed Catholic couples, they will encounter challenges too. I think that's one of the things that we owe to young couples as they're preparing for marriage, is that even though we can give you kind of a blueprint with the church's teachings to follow that will give you a joy-filled marriage, and it really will be, you're still going to face challenges. You're still going to face difficulties, and the world would tell you those are things that are, reasons to just jump ship and to be done. But we understand that no, that's the stuff that you're supposed to fight through and work through. So maybe you could talk about just some of those common features that may come up in relationships, and why, it would be why one ought to stay married, even in spite of those situations.
Even if, and first of all, I have to say we should remind that there's no such thing as a right marriage, because as we were saying, men and women are so different. So like a fork and a knife, as Chesterton used to say, we are like a fork and a knife, and it's impossible to put them together, but we work.
Right.
So our differences are good, and you comprehend you are blessed when you discover your spouse's flaws are your chance to become holy. So to love the other person just when he's lovable is not love. It's just you make me feel okay, but it's not love. So John Paul II used to say, for many of us, family is the only chance to live the gospel, to put the other cheek, and to forgive 7 times 7, and to learn to love in the real way. So we have to say that. Also, we have to say to young couples that love is like a magma. There are waves and hills, and so someday it seems impossible to go on, and then the other day things are going better. So you have to make a decision every day. Okay, I stand still, and what you receive back from God, from life, from God, is much more than you. And also, when you think maybe I'm wrong because my husband or my wife is so different, maybe is cheating me, or maybe I'm tempted to cheat on him, or children are too difficult to raise, or we have not enough money, or you can have many problems. You can have health problems, but if you trust God, He's a Father who is good for to you. You can trust, and you can be sure that you are not alone in this fight. And so if He allows some bad things happen in your life, it's not to damage you, but to help you to become nearer to Him, because the final point of our life is to get near Him, to get to know Him, to see His face. So if you stop having great expectations, and you every day you begin to build a new with patience, with goodwill, I think life is much better, much happier, much easier. So many of our problems come from expectations. So we know what we want to happen, but if we take our hands open and okay, I'm gonna take everything is going to happen. And another important thing is to start thanking for every single thing you have. My daughters get upset because they say that I'm boring. I'm boring because I say you are alive. You have 2 legs, 2 arms. You have a house. You can study, and they start screaming. I don't want to study. But you have books. You have a place to study. You have a dinner. You have lunch. So if you begin thanking God for the many graces he puts in your life, you don't look at the bad. And if I have time, I would love to tell a story.
Please, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. It's my like a personal icon of the changing your look. It's called the story of Gudbrando il Montanaro, the mountain man. Gudbrando, the mountain man, and he lives in a mountain with his wife and two cows, and they decide to go to sell one cow. So he goes to the market in the village. He lives in the mountain. He goes down to the village. He goes to the market. He can't sell the cow, so he goes back to home. But going back, he meets a man with a horse, and so he changes the cow with a horse. And then going back, he meets a man with a pig, and he changes the horse with a pig, and then with a sheep, the sheep with a goat, the goat with a rooster, with a chicken, and then he meets a man who wants to buy the rooster, and he sells and take the money and go to eat the dinner in a restaurant. And then he comes home with nothing in his hands, but because he spent it all the money. And he met before going home. He meets the neighbor, and he asks. He sees him without the cow, and he asks, "How much money did you get from the cow?" And he tells the whole story. And the neighbor says, "I don't want to be in your shoes now, because you have to tell your spouse you lost everything." And Gudbrando says, "No problem for me, because my wife loves me so much that she will say nothing about, because she loves me." So the neighbor bets a big bag of golden coins. I bet that your wife will be upset. And so the Gudbrando comes in the house, and his wife says, "Oh, Gudbrando, welcome back. I'm so happy to see you. Come, the dinner is ready. Come and sit and eat. And how did it go with the cow?" And Gudbrando says, "I changed with a horse." "Okay, it's a great idea. We are gonna use the horse to go to the mass." "No, but I have to tell you that I changed the horse with the pig." "Oh, great. So we're gonna eat the pig." "No, I have to say that I changed with the cow." "Oh, great. So we have the wool." "No, I have changed the sheep with the goat." "Oh, great. So we're gonna eat the cheese." And then the rooster will wake up in the morning, but I sold it. "Oh, no, it doesn't matter. We don't need to be woken up, and we needed some money. But I have to tell you that I spent all my money, and I'm not gonna even eat the dinner because I've already eaten."
Oh.
And his wife says, it doesn't matter, Gudbrando, because I love you so much. I'm so happy you are back in my house, and you are my husband, and I don't care about the cow, the horse. I don't care, because I love you. And this is the most important thing in my life. So I try to be the wife of Gudbrando once in a year, I would say, but I'm never able. And that when I try to do it, my husband gets worried because he doesn't even there's something you're hiding to me. But
Well, did he go back to the neighbor and get the money that he was owed for his wife not getting?
Yes.
So then it all works out. That's great. Now she can really just say, "Hey, I really would have. I'm glad I held my tongue, because now it all works out for us."
I receive every day a text from my friends, messages. My friend says, "I'm a Gudbrando wife because I didn't say anything to my husband."
That's great. That's great.
So, Costanza, you've presented a lot on marriage since you wrote the books, and that was, like you said, just some of your conversations with thousands of couples now over the last 12 years prompted this book, Blessed is the Day We Got It Wrong. In those conversations, in your experience, what would you say are maybe the most common or the most serious challenges to marriage that you hear about from the people you have these conversations with? And then they're in the book. So in the book, each chapter is why stay married, even if. Maybe pick just one or two of the most common challenges that you encounter when talking to people. And then in the book, what's your argument to say, yeah, even if that happened, or even if you're going through that, here's why to stay married?
I think there are big problems like cheating, problem, very serious. And in those cases, I think you have to ask for help. You have to ask for someone to help to stay together, to pray. And I think it's a different issue. But the most common, if I understand correctly your question, in the most common cases is like problems of understanding each other. So I think many times they love each other, but they cannot communicate the love, and they cannot translate the love. For instance, each one of us has a language to express love. My language is words, so I make compliments. I would like to receive compliments, but my husband expresses love doing things. Maybe he puts the fuel in the car, and I answer, I love you too, because I know that it's his way of expressing love. But I would like to be invited out for dinner, but he says it's not useful to spend money in these things. It's better to save money, because he doesn't. It's not his language. I think that we should try to understand how to translate our ways of expressing love. We have to translate each other. We have to make an effort to express love and to listen to the other. So I think the majority of the problems when I meet couples is they love each other. They are made to be. It's a good marriage. It's a right marriage. It's not wrong, but it seems to be, because they stop trying to understand one another, to take time for the couple. My spiritual director uses to say that we should give us 10 minutes a day, one night a week, one day each month, and 1 week each year, to stay just together and look at each other in the eyes, and take some good time together. And sometimes with the work and children and things to do, and we forget to do it. At the beginning of the Lent time, Quaresima, the preparation to Easter, a priest said to husbands, you should listen to your wives 10 minutes a day. And my husband asked, but 10 minutes altogether, or just 2 and 2? It's real. I'm not joking. He really asked it. 10 minutes altogether. So I think it's the most common fact. We should take time for the couple.
Yeah. And you, at the end of your book, because we're coming down to the end here, at the end, you have, we were just briefly joking about it during the break, that you have a decalogue at the end. And for the women, it's multi-paragraphed, going into some depth on each of the points. And the men, The men are actually invited to read it because it's titled Deep Analysis of Football Playbook and Tactics. Which is just great. They turn the page and it's just 10 bullet point sentences. It's very straight to the point, very simple, starting with listen to her. So I think it would be great. I'd love to read all of what is said to the women, but it's just too long for us here at so people will have to get the book to read. Maybe you can sum up for the women, but for the men, I think Steve ought to just read them, or perhaps you could read them. I think it's good if Steve reads them.
Yes,
Okay, so
you can comment on them and maybe tell us what your message is.
All right, so dear listener, Costanza is going to talk a little bit about the women's decalogue and maybe the men's, but here's the list for you men who are listening. Number 1, listen to her. Number 2, look at her. Really try to notice if she trimmed her hair or is wearing a skirt. Number 3, listen some more. Another 2 minutes. You can do it. That puts us up to 12 minutes a day. Number 4, tell her she's beautiful. Maybe not as beautiful as Dybala, but close. Now, Dybala is a soccer player.
Oh.
We say soccer in English, a football player.
Okay. Yes.
Who absolutely, our son is a soccer football player. He actually, Dybala is one of his favorites, so he'll very much appreciate.
Really?
He's not married yet, but he is dating seriously. So say she's not as beautiful as Dybala, but she's still beautiful. Number 5, defend her from herself, from her own mental hijinks. Oh, that's an interesting one. 6, protect her from external threats. 7, free her from useless burdens. 8, guard your heart and your gaze for her alone. Number 9, love your kids. And 10, be ready to die for her, one grocery cart at a time. That's a great list. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Costanza, for the women's decalogue.
Yeah.
But it's too long. But I think the most important thing is to speak less. I try to stop correcting. I stop correcting for each and every single thing my husband does. I would like to make a small correction, a small
tweak, just a tweak. Yeah.
You should put your shoes there and you should wash your hands, and you should not put the fork here because the fork goes on your left. So I try to say just 10% of the thing I would like to say, but for my husband it's too much, but I try to reduce, and so I try to stop correcting him. Slow down, not stop, but slow down in correcting. And the second one is to be the wife of good Brando. So to look at the good parts of the things he does. So when he comes back, if he leaves his shoes in the middle of the room, I try to thank him for the fact that he is back, he's home. So it's more important than the place of the shoes, because his home is not to his lover's house. So
his shoes are in the middle of your room, not some other lady's room.
That's good point.
So I should try to change my glance on him, to change my mind, to look at what he is doing. He's doing bad because he's always doing bad, but he's doing. So I would maybe I'm joking. He's not always doing bad, but he's not doing the way I would like, because I'm like a perfectionist, and I'm also very fixed on the hygiene issues, and I'm very ordinated. So my husband is home, and I want to thank God he's alive, and he's there for our children. He speaks not very often, but when he speaks, he has one word, because I can trust him, and it's very, very important for me. It's more than the other things he does, not in the perfect. So I think the first thing, speak less and change your on the other person.
Marriage renewal, something very important. It is a blessing and also something we can honor with God on a daily basis. Thanks to the Catholic Conversation. More on this episode or ones you might have missed. Easy to find when you go to EWTN.com/podcast, because Podcast Central is your one stop for all things when it comes to catching up on what you need with EWTN Radio and our programs. And as you do so, share those with a friend. I'm Ace McKay, bugging out. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Remember to let God define who you are, and I'll see you again with Catholics Coast to Coast.